on to E13, and this is quite a lot to look at, so I'm going to cover up the sections we're not looking at. So because I did this in advance, I was able to work really slowly and, it's very small. You're welcome to do this on separate paper if it makes more sense to you, and it's just easier. I'm going to pause after every one so you can, copy it carefully, so don't be stressed out about not getting, doing it at the same speed that I'm doing it. Okay, so this first one, I've gone ahead in and marked in that negative space. Now, what you could have done is not done that and just sort of figured out that piece and figured out this piece and added them together. I chose to make this an entire big rectangle and make it big rectangle minus little rectangle. So if you want to follow and do it that way, this is a way to do it. So the big rectangle is green and minus that small rectangle area. So the total is 17 feet because you're subtracting that. And the little dotted lines are going to mean spaces that aren't really there. Okay, moving along to number 2. This one has a little bit more going on to it, or with it. Let's see if we can see all of that in the frame. Okay. Let's see, that looks like a bit of glare. Let's get rid of your glare there. Okay. So this one is going to be big rectangle minus little rectangle, and then adding in that little blue triangle down there. So the way it started on your paper was that part's not there, but I do have this preference for making a big rectangle and subtracting that smaller one. And so that's how I set it up. There's a big rectangle, the whole thing, minus that orange red part, and then adding in that blue triangle. What was a little tricky, having to do it first, is figuring out what the numbers are. Partly because this is a terrible Xerox and it's hard to see what the numbers are. So I went in and made the ones that were given in black, I made them much darker. But then you have to, if you're going to figure out the triangle separately from the rectangle, and you have to, there's no way to figure it out without doing that, then you have to look at what this distance is here. That's 8 and that's 4. So that means the distance from this corner to this corner has to be 8 plus 4, so it has to be 12. And if you know the whole distance is 14, that means that's 12 and that's 2. And the way you know this is 2 is because this whole distance from here to here is 10, and if that's 8, that has to be 2. So after that, it's just a matter of plugging in the formulas after the detective figured out all those missing numbers. So the whole big triangle is 10 by 12, that's 120. And then you subtract that little one, it has the dotted lines, that's not really a part of the shape. That's 32 square feet. And that you get 88 for that. And then you're going to add in that little triangle right there. Although, look at what I did. I'm looking at it. That is not right. Half of 2 times 2 is not 4. Half of 2 times 2 is 2. So that should be a 2. And 88 plus 2. Let's make this into a 90. Much better. Okay. Moving along. Let's go down to number 3. So number 3, let's get our eyes on this one. So number 3 is pretty straightforward. There's not any negative space. Everything that's on here is something that you're going to count as part of the area. It's rectangle plus triangle. So the rectangle, and it wasn't really even too complicated numbers to figure out. It's 18 by 9. That's that. You did need to figure out the base of that triangle though. So if this whole thing's 18, and that's 6, and that's 6, that means this part must be 6, because 6 plus 6 plus 6, and 6 times 3 is 18. So that missing dimension for the base of your triangle is 6, and you plug it in here. And then add those two together, and I'll let you pause on that. And we'll move to number 4. So number 4. Number 4 does have a bit of negative space. Let's get this all in. So it would be a triangle, but it has that bit, you see with the dotted dots here, you're going to be subtracting that. So it's triangle, this big triangle, minus that rectangle. So it says that this length is 6, and it says that that length is 6. So this whole side is 12. So you're going to need that when you're figuring out as one big triangle before you subtract that little part. One big triangle is going to be 12 by 15. So that's this big triangle minus that little orange rectangle. If you want to pause on that, that's how you do that one. Number 5. I just can't help but write an exclamation point when I see a trapezoid, because yes, you could solve it as a rectangle and 2 triangles in this case, but no need. We have a formula for a trapezoid. So, and it's really straightforward. There's no detective work at all to do about the numbers. They gave us the numbers and we just plug them in. I'll let you pause on that one. And finally, this trapezoid. Same thing. There was no, confusing, puzzling work to do. It's a trapezoid. Here's the formula for a trapezoid. Again, we've talked about this before. It doesn't matter which one's base 1 or base 2, just dealer's choice. You put in whichever one you want. The height, though, has to be connected by that right angle. And so there we go. That is how to do composite shapes. And most of these were composed, if they weren't trapezoids, they were rectangles and triangles.